Okay, we are now recording. Thank you everyone for joining. I anticipate that we'll have some who sign on as we continue to move forward, and we welcome that completely. But thanks for joining us this morning as we talk about National Philanthropy Day and the great event that it is, and especially award nominations that are such an important part of that day. So this is being recorded. So if you'd like to go back and review what we talked about, or especially if you'd like to share it with others, we'll have that available in the coming days and would love for you to help us share it so that everybody has this great information. So welcome. I think I know everyone on so far this morning. I'm Catherine Wiegand, and I'm so proud to be a part of the amazing AFP Texas Plains chapter. But the stars of the show, my co-hosts today, Haley Bell and Tim Bynum, are here to give you some great news so that we are going to have so many outstanding nominations for awards that our committee is going to be overwhelmed. And that is our goal for today. I am going to mute. No, I'm not. Okay, I'm not going to do that. There's not very many of us. So just if you would please mute yourself. I think everybody has. Just so that there's not any background noise, I would appreciate that. And then as we go through what we're talking about this morning, if you think of a question, please write it down in the chat. Type it into the chat or just make a note for yourself. We're going to allow time for questions at the end. We want to be sure and address all of those because if you have a question, I bet a lot of other people do as well. So I want to kick us off this morning just by talking about why National Philanthropy Day? Why have we hosted it for so many years? Why is it important? And why are we taking this time to talk about the award nominations? And for me, there's 3 points that I want to share with you this morning. And number one, it's a great opportunity to become more involved in our local chapter. And when I was straight out of college and first joined AFP, NPD was one of the first areas in which I volunteered. And I just went early that morning and helped set up tables and put out programs. But that's really where I started learning and meeting people. And it was fantastic. And so it's a great opportunity to become more involved with the chapter. Number two, I don't know about you, but when I was fundraising and working development, most of the people that I worked with had no idea really what I did or why I was there. It's just kind of in a world by ourselves. And for your boss and for your peers to come to this luncheon and see how philanthropy works in the Panhandle, it's an amazing opportunity for you to share that story with those with whom you work. And finally, and probably most important is, it's our best opportunity to honor the donors and the volunteers and all the people who make philanthropy work in the Panhandle. And so to me, that's why this webinar and the award nominations are so important. We want to be sure if we're going to nominate someone, we want it to be the strongest nomination possible so we can show the world the Texas Panhandle really is the most philanthropic place I've ever known. And we want to highlight that at this luncheon. So thank you for joining us today. I hope that everyone sends in 3 or more nominations. That's our goal. But to move on in the morning, I'm going to turn it over to Haley Bell, and Haley is going to cover a little bit about the NPD nomination timeline. So Haley, take it away.
Thank you. I think if you're not muted, if you wouldn't mind muting, I feel like we're getting a little bit of feedback from someone's phone or computer maybe. So I am really honored to be the NPD committee, the selection committee chair this year. So we have put together a great committee, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But first, I want to cover the timeline. So nominations are open. Tim Bynum, our chapter administrator, has done a fantastic job getting all of those, the website updated. There's a really great FAQ page that he'll go over. But thank you to Tim to having that up and ready for us so we can get an early start. So I want to talk first about carryover nominations. So if you have a carryover nomination, and you will know that you do if you received something from Tim, and if you think you have a carryover but you did not receive an email from Tim that has all the nomination information, please reach out to him and let him know. But if you do have a carryover, you should, or someone in your organization should have received an email with all of their information. Carryover nominations must be submitted on the new 2024 nomination form. So if you don't take that information from your carryover that Tim sent you, and you can copy and paste and use the same information and update it as needed, But if it is not submitted on the new form, it will not be considered. And we want our selection committee to have uniform nominations to where each field is the same for each category and each nomination, so that they can accurately score those. We have a point system that we start with. So just be sure and make note that if you want your carryover nomination to be considered, you must submit it on the 2024 form. To that, if you can have 1 to 2 letters, or excuse me, at least one letter of support and no more than 3. I would highly suggest that you consider getting those updated, whether it's using the same person but updating the information, maybe finding in someone else that would help strengthen that nomination. But consider your letters of support and how you can update those to strengthen your nomination. Next, early bird timeline. So nominations, if you have your nomination submitted by May the 1st, it will have no implication, good or bad, on the weight or the scoring, but it will put your organization in for some free conference registrations for our local conference, which is just an added bonus. But that's May 1st. May 15th is the hard deadline. There will not be an extension this year for the first time in probably AFP history. But that is for the nomination form, the online form that you submit, and your support letters. So everything must be in by May the 15th, because our selection committee is going to meet really early this year to have that decisions made so that we can announce our honorees, open up our table sales, and do a really good job honoring and celebrating our nominees leading up to, or excuse me, our honorees leading up to the event in November. So nominations are open. May 1st is the first early bird deadline. May 15th is the final deadline to submit. Early summer, like I said, we're looking at early June, late May, early June to announce. And then November 17th is our luncheon. And Katie Nigos and Lisa Lloyd they've already are off to a great start planning that event. I know that it'll be in the Grand Ballroom again this year. Tickets will go on sale soon. We don't have that quite finalized. It'll more than likely go on sale once we've announced the honorees for the year. Have all of that finalized. Nonprofits, if you just want to make note for your nonprofit, $500 is going to be the early bird nonprofit rate. And then that timeline will go down and it'll go up to $1,000. And that'll also be the normal price for for-profits or other people. I think that's all for timeline, unless there's a question, but enter your questions if there's something else on timeline. Catherine, am I missing something?
Hey, like, can you tell us just a little bit about the selection committee and how that's kind of pulled together and who serves on that committee?
Yes. So our selection committee is put together. It's a fantastic group of individuals. It is made up of both AFP board members, past honorees, and then just also community members. And that's not just Amarillo Canyon, that's far reaching into our communities. We like to include individuals from our surrounding rural towns. So it's a really diverse, great group of individuals.
Great. We're such a small group here that if do you have a question right now about timeline, about early bird special deadline, if you're resubmitting a previous nomination? Any questions right now while it's fresh on Haley's mind?
Okay, you might have said this, but did they open? Is Luke going to send out the email with the link, or do we just go to the website?
He will send out, following this Zoom, he will send out a mass email letting everyone know that it's open. But just for you guys all to know, it is open and live. The website is up and going. So if you want to peruse the different categories, and hopefully you've all been brainstorming on the people that you have in your mind to nominate. But if you want to look through those descriptions and look at what's needed in the questions, feel free to go ahead and do that.
Great question. Anything else about timeline? Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Tim. Tim's going to talk about the actual nomination process. And if you have a question while you're working on these forms or working through things, Tim is your man. Tim is the one who has set all of this up. We are, again, so lucky to have him as our chapter administrator. But he's done a lot of work this year, I think, to make things even more clear and easy to access. And so at any point during the process between now and the deadline, if you have any question, don't hesitate to contact him. And he's going to kind of tell you a little bit about how nominations work and how you submit. So Tim, on to you.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine, and Casey. Perfect question for the segue here, because I'm just going to do a screen share and actually show you exactly where to find all of these nominations and the resources that you will need to complete a good nomination. So give me one moment. I'm going to share screen. Okay, so this is the homepage of our website, afptxplains.com. And you can access what I call the NPD nominations page a couple of different ways here on the homepage, but for the sake of this, let's just click on this submit an award nomination link. And this is going to take you to our nominations page. So all of your nominations are going to be submitted first through these individual forms for each available award. As we go through here, I'm gonna talk about kind of a secondary step that you will go through to submit your letters of support. But for now, let's just get familiar with this page. It's going to list again individual forms for each one of our awards. Each one of these forms does have unique questions based on that nomination. So they're all a little bit different, but you can look at all of them. Again, this just kind of reinforces some deadlines and things that come up. Before we dive into the actual nomination forms themselves, I want to point out here at the top, this NPD nomination tips page. This is just information that we have compiled, and we've had this available to you in the past. We update it each year. Really, it is just kind of a cheat sheet. So if we're accomplishing these 7 things that we kind of set out to do, that should ensure that you have number 1, a complete nomination, but also a successful and on-time nomination. So I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. I just want to point out where it is and where you can find it. Should you want a little bit of extra information about what makes a nomination successful. It also lists, again, reinforces a few of our deadlines, what nominations that we are calling for right now. And also there's a little disclaimer there at the bottom that says, of note, in the judgment of the committee, you know, if our committee can select recipients for special awards, maybe that are outside of these categories. So if you have a nomination that might not fit into one of these 9 or 10 categories, reach out to us. We're happy to have that conversation with you, talk through that, see if there's something that we could put together, or we can coach you into one of these categories and coach you through that nomination process so that we can get a complete nomination in. I'm going to go right back out of this and show you 2. We have a comprehensive listing of all of the past recipients, going back to the very first recipients of National Philanthropy Day here with Texas Plains. The reason that we put this out here, there's one reason, and that is because we want you to make sure that you're aware if the nominee, whether that's a business, an individual, or an organization, has already been recognized with this award. If they have, in most cases, that disqualifies them from getting it again. However, there are some exceptions to that. If new activities, new events, new acts of philanthropy have happened that would justify a resubmission, in that case, I'd like for you to call me or email me, and let's confirm that before you do all the work of resubmitting, or not resubmitting, but submitting a nomination for someone who has already been recognized with that award in the past. Okay, so let's look at the actual nomination. We can start here with, let's just do outstanding small business and take a look at this. Very easy form to complete. One of the things that I want to point out, I know that most people on this call, I can tell just by looking at the names, have submitted these before. So I do want to just really, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the, pun intended there, on the changes to the nomination. So one of the probably biggest changes this year is we've made it a lot cleaner, a lot more black and white, for our nominators to indicate a co-nominator for a nomination. So you'll notice that there is a required drop down on every single nomination that is a question, does this submission have a co-nominator? So what is a co-nominator? The co-nominator is somebody that would get, I'm going to say equal billing and equal ownership of the nomination. And that means that they would be recognized in marketing materials and at the luncheon as a co-nominator. It's not a designation for somebody that is simply submitting a letter of support. Obviously, each one of these letters to be, or each one of these nominations to be complete, need to have at least one and no more than 3 letters of support. Those aren't from your co-nominators. Those are from what I would consider supporters of the nomination. A co-nominator is someone that equally owns the nomination with you. So that's there. That is a required question. If it's no, just simply select no. But you do have to answer that question. Okay, so, you know, one of the things that maybe not everybody understands is literally how these nominations are evaluated by the selection committee. So in each one of these categories, I mean, there are unique questions that are tied to a set point total. Okay, so evidence of direct gift support for this small business is worth up to 30 points. And so everybody that goes through and objectively scores these are assigning a point total to each one of these questions. And then we average those scores, and then we actually aggregate the scores as well, basically to come up with a ranking and a data set for our committee to then review and talk about personally and come up with those selections. These are text boxes that you can kind of copy and paste into if you want to. We request that you limit your responses to 300 words or less. I'll give you a little cheat code here. I don't think that there's a word limit on the text boxes, but try to get your responses to 300 words or less. The easiest way to do that is go through this process on a Word document and then just copy and paste your responses into the text boxes. That way, you know that you're meeting that 300 words or less requirement. Let's talk about the one thing that is necessary for you to remember and follow up on with the form. So it's this last part here that talks about letters of support. So in this statement, it says, in addition to submitting the narrative portion of the nomination, you're required to provide these letters of support that are to be scanned and emailed to our AFP Gmail account. We don't have the functionality on this website for you to be able to upload anything. So that's why we require you to scan and email those letters. That's an important piece of this, because without at least one letter of support, your nomination that you submit right here is going to be considered incomplete. So that's why we've even included this checkbox here that you have to check that says that you acknowledge this submission procedure. Most people really haven't had trouble with that. If we get an incomplete nomination, I will also reach out to you and give you a reminder that we don't have your letters of support, but those are submitted in a different way. Like I said, through our Gmail account than this form submission. So each one of these individual categories have a unique form with unique questions to fill out, but all are submitted in the exact same way. And again, you can also look and see the award descriptions at the beginning of every single one of these forms. One of the things that we will add to this nominations page, and I'm just realizing that I did not have this done before the meeting, is we do kind of have a comprehensive list of all the award descriptions. Thanks, Casey. And we will actually link that here at the top with the nomination tips and the previous recipients buttons here. So it's easy for you to look at kind of a comprehensive list of the award descriptions. So you know which one to select whenever you're going through and submitting a nomination. And with that, I think I'll stop the share. Actually, I'm just going to point out, again, accessing this through our website is the best way to go, afptxplains.com. This page directly is just the NPD nom page. You can go there directly if you want. You see that URL up there. But you can get to it through the header on our homepage, or again, that button here. This contact us is a good way to go to that AFP Texas Plains Gmail account. I'm noticing that my little icons for our socials aren't working. This middle one, I believe, is our YouTube channel, which is where I know that works on mobile. I just don't know why it's not coming up on my desktop. That the YouTube channel is where the recording of this this Zoom is going to live. We'll be sending that out on socials too, the link to that. But if you ever want to access that through our website, there's a link to our YouTube channel there at the bottom. And with that, I'll stop the share. And I guess I'll open it up for nomination questions.
You're muted, Haley.
Thanks. If you are not receiving emails from AFP, if you got this from a carryover email, or if there's someone in your organization that you think may not be receiving our emails, please direct them to our website. There's a sign up form, but I just want to make sure. I know Tim mentioned that some of the individuals that he sent carryover nominations to did not know about this Zoom, which makes me wonder if they were not receiving our emails. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I'll just I think people always kind of want to know how we do this, because it's a really it's a neat thing for our chapter. It's kind of the paramount thing that we do. But carryover nominations are actually really important. And we had, I mean, if you want to kind of look behind the curtain, several of our recipients last year were carryover nominations. So I say that to just encourage you. If your nomination is not selected the first year that you submit, you know, that's not uncommon. So we actually consider nominations for 3 consecutive cycles. So the year that you submit and the 2 years following. So for 3 years, your nomination is eligible for award. You can tell that over the course of 3 years, sometimes we make edits and updates to those the questions that are asked and the way that you submit information via the nomination. That's why we're required. We've made enough of those changes over the last 3 years. That's why this year we are requiring you to basically resubmit the nomination altogether. Now you can copy and paste the information over into the new form, but it needs to be on the new form and basically like an entirely new submission. And if you have questions or anything, just like I said in the carryover email that I sent, reach out to me and I'll be happy to do that.
Tim, will you also talk about development officers that may have been employed in the past that maybe wrote the original nomination, and how we contact the organization?
Yeah, you bet. So, you know, we all understand that there's quite a bit of turnover in the advancement and development world, and sometimes that those nominations over the course of 3 cycles of consideration may have been completed and submitted by somebody that's no longer with an organization. In that case, I do my best to reach out to, say, an ED or somebody who's that replacement. We consider those nominations to kind of be held or owned by the organization, not the individual. So that's typically what we're doing, is reaching out to somebody at that organization that submitted the nomination, and giving them the chance to resubmit or update letters, those kind of things. But that does happen sometimes, and that's why I asked, if you think that you might have a carryover nomination, but you haven't heard from me, I reached out to all of the ones that we are currently considering or would be considered yesterday via email. A couple of people that I talked to are on this Zoom, so that's good. So we've got to check there. But if you think you might have a carryover nomination, or you're just curious, reach out to me and we can double check that and make sure. But yeah, we consider those for 3 years, and then they kind of roll off and can be resubmitted later. Any other questions?
Tim,
do-
thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I do want to bring up the point that for the co-nominators, you'll notice that those text boxes had the point ranges next to each of them. There are not additional points given if there's a co-nominator. That's really just for your organizations to be able to share that nomination, but that does not affect the scoring of your nomination.
Yeah, one of the things that really make for a robust and successful nomination is the nominator's ability to show an organization or an individual's charitable efforts across numerous organizations, numerous philanthropy sectors, more than just what they've done for you or your organization. So there needs to be some depth to those nominations. That what that means is you will have the opportunity to show that both through the answers to these questions and through letters of support. You can do that in a way by including a co-nominator that lends themselves to the nomination, that helps you write that shows different perspective through the answering of those questions. But by simply just naming a co-nominator, it doesn't really make your nomination better or scored differently. It does allow us as a chapter to be able to recognize, and I guess in some way, I say recognize, to acknowledge formally the other nominators or people that want to honor our award recipients. Kind of stumbled through that, but does that make sense? Shakes, I see some head shakes. Good. Okay, good.
Well, because I think some years, like especially for Philanthropist of the Year, there have been philanthropists that have made significant gifts to 2 or 3 nonprofits in that same year. And so in that case, I think it makes sense for there to be a co-nominator, because both nonprofits were significantly affected by that same donor. Both of those gifts are important to the nomination itself. And so that makes sense. And so in that way, both of those who were equally beneficial and equally involved would receive recognition and acknowledgement for that award. Any other questions that you can think of for Haley or for Tim about timeline, scheduling, process, anything that we've missed that would help make it clearer for you today? Okay, if you're like me, I will end this Zoom meeting and 30 seconds later, I will think of the amazing question that I should have asked on the Zoom. So if that is the case, remember you can always use the AFP texasplains@gmail.com. Send an email and Tim will get that right away. You can also access that email really easily from our website. There's a contact us button and that takes you directly to the same email. So in the next few days, or as you're working on your nomination, don't hesitate to reach out. And Tim can really help you make that process easier. And this recording will be available on our YouTube channel, and so we will work on that and have that up by the end of this week. And so we encourage you to share this with others who were not able to join us today. And let's get the word out and have tons of nominations for an amazing National Philanthropy Day event. Haley, will you remind us of the date again of that event?
It's November the 17th, and it's a lunch. And then I always think it's kind of a fun perk. If you are a nominator for someone who is honored, you also get to come to the VIP event that evening. Marcy Heim is going to be our speaker this year, which if you've been in the development world, you've probably heard of Marcy Heim. She's going to be really fun. So looking forward to a great event. And Katie and Lisa have already done a great job getting that going.
Katie Nigos and Lisa Lloyd are our co-chairs for NPD this year, and they are off and running, y'all. It's going to be a phenomenal event. You will want to bring all of your staff and all of your board to join us. And so mark that on your calendar. Thank you for joining us today, and I wish all of you a very blessed remainder of the week. Take care.
Thanks, Catherine.